Hello there, welcome back to Mr. Rowe Science. Today's video is about cell specialisation. If you haven't yet, it would be a great idea to watch my last two videos about eukaryotes and prokaryotes and the structure of animal plant cells, because there's lots of the same themes which you see again in this one. So first of all, what are specialised cells and why they're needed? A specialised cell is any cell which has particularly adapted features to the environment it finds itself in. And within multicellular organisms such as ourselves, we have a wide range of specialised cells because we have different tissues and organs, and we need to do a wide range of functions to keep us alive as an organism. A key idea within this topic is the idea of structure versus function, which is something you find a lot in biology. What we mean by structure is what features a cell has and what it looks like generally, whereas a function is what an organism or a cell actually has to do. And the two things very much link into each other. So if you know something's structure and what it has, you can work out or take a good guess at what its function will be. And if you know the function and what it does, that gives you a fair idea of what its structure must be and what organelles it must have. There are a few specific examples you need to know of specialised cells from both animals and plants. And the first one of those is a sperm cell. If you think about what the job of the sperm cell is, it needs to contain genetic material to fertilise the egg, and it needs to have a tail to get it to the oviduct where the egg will be found. So the key features it has to have is a tail. The biological word for that is a flagellum, and that allows it to swim around to find its way to the oviduct and that egg. It also has what we call a haploid nucleus. So nucleus contains genetic material. The word haploid means it contains half of the genome. That's really useful because when it fertilises the egg contains the other half of the genome, and it makes an entire one to form the zygote in a baby. At the head of it, it's got a structure called an acrosome. And an acrosome is needed because its function is to get inside the egg cell. So the acrosome contains enzymes which are able to break into the egg cell to allow it to fertilise the egg. So that's a sperm cell, and it's the first animal specialised cell. The next animal specialised cell is a nerve cell. With nerve cells, they need to do a few things. First of all, they need to send messages over long distances. So in the middle, they have a large axon or nerve fibre, and that allows them to send electrical signals to other parts of the nervous system. That axon contains some insulation, a little bit like the plastic around a wire to keep the electrical signal in. Then on one end, it's got the cell body. The cell body is vital for it because it contains a nucleus, it contains mitochondria, it contains ribosomes, which the cell needs to survive. The cell body makes a small number of connections with other nerve cells, and down the other end of it, there are lots of connections with other nerve cells, and these connections or branches are called dendrites. So the nerve cell or neuron is specialised to send electrical signals over large distances within the body. And the third animal specialised cell you need to know about is the red blood cell. With the red blood cell, it looks a little bit different depending on which side you view it from. From on top, it looks a little bit like this. So it's got a dark outer ring and it's got a lighter inner ring. And the reason why it looks like that is it has a shape called a biconcave disc, which means it's fat on the edges and it's actually got a dip in the middle. So this is a side view to show the biconcave disc structure. This is a really simple specialised cell because its only job is to carry oxygen around the body. So it contains the pigment haemoglobin for oxygen transport, and it contains pretty much nothing else, just cytoplasm, haemoglobin and a membrane. You'll notice, unlike other eukaryotic cells, it doesn't have a nucleus, it doesn't have mitochondria. That means that these have a very short shelf life. So every couple of months, your red blood cells in the body need replacing because of these features. Okay, moving on to your plant specialised cells. The first one of those you need to know about is the root hair cell. So these guys are specialised for absorption from the soil. They take in water, they take in minerals, So to allow them to do that, they've got a little bit of a strange shape. This bit here, which I'm now drawing the cell wall around, is going to be the actual root hair. And what the root hair does is it has a really large surface area because of its elongated shape, and it allows for absorption of water and minerals. It's also got a really large vacuole which goes right into the root hair, again to help for absorption. It's got the nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes in this end of it where it's got the square cell body. What you'll notice it doesn't have, which is unusual for plants, is chloroplasts. The reason it doesn't have those is because root hair cells spend their time underneath the soil, so they don't actually need to have those they don't actually need to have those chloroplasts because they never come across sunlight. And the last couple of plant cells are you've got xylem cells. With xylem cells, it's debatable whether these are actually living cells at all, really, because the cells used to be there when it was developing, but then the cell dies back, so all it leaves is the cell wall. It's actually dead, really, the xylem part. It just leaves a tube for water to move up and down the plant. So you've got the hollow tube with the cell wall, and just one modification they make to it is they reinforce the cell wall with a substance called lignin. The reason they do that is to make it more waterproof so that the xylem doesn't spring leaks when it's moving water and minerals around the plants. And finally, the last plant specialised cell we're going to talk about is the phloem. The phloem goes alongside the xylem as a specialised vascular tissue. The phloem transports sugars and amino acids around the organism of the plant. In contrast to the xylem, the phloem is made up of living cells. But like the phloem, the living cells basically need to form a tube. So what they've got is a structure called sieve plates between each cell involved in the tube, and each cell is called a sieve tube element cell. To be able to transport the sugars and amino acids around the plant, the cells need to stay alive, and because they don't have much in them themselves, they have to have a cell next to them which does all of the basic functions for them. So next to the sieve tube element you have a companion cell, and the companion cell is going to contain extra cell organelles, extra mitochondria, extra ribosomes, and the function is to carry out respiration, to make proteins, and basically to keep its sieve tube element cell alive. So it's like a life support system for the other cells within the phloem. So what we've talked about today, we've gone through a few different examples of specialised cells, which of course as you need to know, and we've talked a bit about structure and function for how they work. I'll see you again next time. Thank you for watching Mr. O Science.